Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Janae Stevens, the president of the Rotary Club of Peoria, and today, along with the president of the Rotary Club of Peoria-North, Ashley Schreck, we present our Veterans Day celebration, a combined meeting of the Rotary Clubs of Peoria and Peoria-North. Today's meeting will begin with an invocation offered by Peoria Downtown Rotarian John Kelly. Following the invocation, we will have the presentation of the colors by the color guard from the 182nd Airlift Wing, the singing of our national anthem led by Ryan Lacoste, accompanied by Stan Butler, both from Peoria Downtown Club. And following the national anthem, please remain standing until the color guard has posted the colors and exited the room. And again, as a reminder, please silence your cell phones. John.
Today I have what I find to be, anyway, an interesting combination of a prayer and a poem coming out of a little book called Fulton Sheen's Wartime Prayer Book. As we all know, Fulton Sheen is a native son and it's a soldier's prayer, so I thought it would be appropriate for today. It ain't as I hopes, he'll keep me safe while other blokes goes down. It ain't as I wants to leave this world and wear an hero's crown. It ain't for that as I say my prayers when I goes to the attack, but I pray that whatever comes my way, I may never turn my back. I leave the matter of life and death to the Father who knows what's best. And I praise that I still may play the man, whether I turns east or west. But still I pray I may do my bit. And then, if I must turn west, I'll be unashamed when my name is named, and I'll find a soldier's rest.
Color guard, post on the color. Color. And what? Towards harm. The word, heart. Color. Halt. Present. Harms. Order. Harms.
at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red flare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing us that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please be seated. It is now my honor and privilege to recognize today's guests. We begin by recognizing all family, friends, and visiting Rotarians from clubs around the area. So at this time, if you are visiting with us, will you please stand to be recognized? Thank you, Mr. Dick. Next, we would like to give special recognition to any World War II, Korean War, or Vietnam War veterans that are in attendance today. So would any who served in the U.S. military during any of those conflicts please stand or wave so that we may acknowledge you. And finally, would all of those who are currently serving on active duty, National Guard or Reserves in any branch of the United States military please stand and be recognized. Thank you all so much for being part of this special program, and on behalf of both of the Rotary clubs, we would like to extend a warm Rotary welcome.
It is now our honor to present a special military tribute recognizing each branch of service and those who have served. At this time, we'd like to recognize those in attendance who are veterans and those who are currently serving our nation through active duty or reserve duty services. I will briefly introduce each branch of the armed forces and ask those in attendance who have served or are currently serving to stand if you are able to be recognized. You can't have a break today, sir. Sorry. The United States Air Force. As the Air Force branch of the United States Armed Forces, originally created in 1987 as a part of the Army Signal Corps, the Air Force was established as a separate branch in 1947. The Air Force articulates its core missions in air supremacy, global integration intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, rapid global mobility, global strike, and command and control. Would all veterans of the current members of the Air Force please stand if you are able to be recognized. Please, one more round of applause.
The United States Army is the land service branch of the United States Armed Forces. The oldest and most senior branch of the U.S. military, the Army has its roots in the Continental Army, which was formed in 1775 and officially established as part of the new nation in 1784. Would any veterans or current members of the Army stand if you are able so you can be recognized? Thank you.
The United States Coast Guard. It's mainly a maritime security, search and rescue, and law enforcement service branch of the United States Armed Forces. Created in 1790 at the request of Alexander Hamilton, the Coast Guard's multi-mission service unique among the United States military branches for having a maritime law enforcement mission with jurisdiction in both domestic and international waters, and a federal regulatory agency mission as part of its duties. Would any veterans or current members of the Coast Guard please stand if you are able to be recognized?
The United States Marine Corps is both a maritime and land force service branch of the United States Armed Forces, responsible for conducting expeditionary and amphibious operations through combined arms, implementing its own infantry, artillery, aerial, and special operations forces. The Marine Corps began when 2 battalions of the Continental Marines were formed in 1775 in Philadelphia as a service branch of infantry troops capable of fighting both at sea and on shore. Would any veterans or current members of the Marine Corps please stand if you are able to be recognized? Thank you.
The United States Navy is a maritime service branch of the United States Armed Forces. The Navy traces its origins to the Continental Navy of the Revolutionary War and was formally established in 1794. It is the largest and most powerful Navy in the world, with the highest combined battle fleet tonnage and the world's largest aircraft carrier fleet, and is the 3rd largest of the United States military service branches in terms of personnel. Would any veterans or current members of the United States Navy please stand and be recognized if you are able?
And finally, to be complete, the United States Space Force is the space service branch of the U.S. Armed Forces and the world's only independent space force. Although tracing its roots to the Cold War era, the Space Force was formally created in 2019 and is the smallest U.S. armed service, consisting of 8,400 military personnel, while operating 77 spacecraft in total across various programs. Would any veterans or current members of the Space Force please stand if you're able to be recognized?
Nonetheless, please join us with another round of applause and thanks for those veterans and current members of the United States Armed Forces in attendance with us today. It is now my honor to present today's guest speaker, Air Force Colonel Rusty Ballard of the 182nd Air Wing National Guard. Colonel Rusty Ballard, who is a member of the Rotary Club of Peoria-North, is currently the commander of the 182nd Airlift Wing of the Peoria Air National Guard. His service started with his enlistment in the Illinois National Guard in 1993, and then continued as an Army officer in the 1998 surge to the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter pilot. Following his service in the Army, he transferred to the Illinois Air National Guard in 2003 to become a C-130 Hercules pilot. As a C-130 pilot, he was deployed multiple times around the world and has supported multiple contingency operations in both Afghanistan and Iraq. He has commanded the Group Air Wing level and has served as the C-130 Weapons Systems Council Chair, advocating for all U.S. Air Force's C-130s. Rusty has served in both military and civilian capacities prior to serving as the 16th Wing Commander of the 182nd. Positions such as Air Introduction Agent and Customs and Border Protection, flying both fixed-wing and rotary wing aircraft missions for the U.S.-Mexico border in El Paso, Texas. He is currently a FedEx Boeing 757 and 767 pilot on military leave while serving in the Air National Guard. He lives in Morton with his wife Andrea, daughter Audrey, and son Andy. Please welcome fellow Rotarian Colonel Rusty Ballard.
We will now observe a solemn tribute to our POW and MIAs, presented by members of the Honor Guard from the 182nd Airlift Wing. As you entered today, you may have noticed a table at the front, raised to call attention to its purpose. It is reserved to honor our missing arms. Set for 4, the empty places represent Americans still missing from each of the 4 services: Army, Marine Corps, Navy, and Air Force. This honor ceremony symbolizes that they are still with us. Here in spirit, some in this room were very young when they were sent into combat. However, all Americans should never forget the brave men and women who answered our nation's call and served the cause of freedom in a special way. I'd like to ask you all to stand and remain standing for a moment of silent prayer as the honor guard places the 4 service covers on each empty plate. Please be seated. I'd like to explain the meaning of the items on the special table. The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our missing. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call of duty. The single red rose, displayed in a vase, reminds us of the life of the missing and the ones and friends of those Americans who keep the faith, awaiting answers. The vase is tied with a yellow ribbon, a symbol of our continued determination to account for our missing. A slice of lemon on the bread plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land. A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears endured by those missing and their families who seek answers. The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share in today's event. The chairs are empty. They are missing. Let us never forget the men and women who have yet to return home, and let us pray for the success of our efforts to finally account for them. Please rise. Please be seated. Well, good morning. I guess it's afternoon. Good to see everybody. It's a great morning. I can't say special thanks enough to those members that came out here and did this. As some of you know, we have the Air National Guard. We have a meeting the first weekend of the month. So some of those people came down from Chicago, went back home, got the civilian jobs, and then they heard about this event. They volunteered to come down here just for today, just to do this, and they're going to go back to Chicago tonight. And then also, we were looking for a bugler, and connection from one of our retired members. His wife, a band teacher in Pekin, got 2 students to come out here to do that today. So Aiden and Isaac, Garlic, thank you very much. Thank you for Rotary, Jim Barrett for hosting. Always great food, good camaraderie. Always enjoy coming out here. And thank you for the invitation to speak. I'm always honored to get in front of people and speak on behalf of the military. But one thing I've learned about this is we have some sneaky Rotarians amongst us, right? I've not been too good at attending Rotary in the last year. I've had other commitments, I'm kind of busy every once in a while. It's like, you haven't been here a while, but we can get him to come back and invite him to speak to something he won't be able to say no to. Well done. But we come from a good community. Peoria in general is phenomenal when it comes to sport, to the military community. People come from all the country I know that I serve with on a weekend a month. And often more times than that they always keep coming back, and it's because of the culture of the wing, and it's a culture in the Peoria community. Providing support to a veteran and their families, you're not only recognizing those that are currently serving, but also the previous generations that have been touched by military service. Much like the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all the conflicts today, they rock a nation. The nation. It affects so many people other than the ones just serving. There have been so many veterans that have returned home that they did not receive a warm welcome. They returned to a society where people could not differentiate the war from the warrior. But it wasn't from those lessons, it wasn't because of those lessons learned that we could actually, even if you didn't support the conflict, you could still support the military member. From the first day I donned a military uniform, I benefited from those previous generations. Before I'd ever been to training, but I'd ever been overseas, before I'd ever been in command of somebody, I benefited from the support and recognition from within our communities. Support that was cultivated by multiple generations before I came along. Support that was present regardless of the conflict. There was never any doubt that I was doing the right thing. I was reminded every day of the importance and significance of wearing the uniform. It gave me hope and purpose that my sacrifice would be worthwhile, not go unappreciated when answering the call to protect our way of life. Even today, whenever I have new members come into the military, I like to talk to them about the weight of the military uniform. That there's an uncertainty in the world right now, and wearing that uniform represents hope within our nation. So I asked them to wear the uniform with pride for those that came before them, and to let our communities know that the training, the effort, the timing, the manning, the continued support will be our nation's greatest deterrence for any future conflict. I talk about the weight of the military uniform, and I say this in jest, and sometimes I'm not good at delivering a joke, but there's often times when I come to Rotary, all the great acquaintances, or some people maybe don't know me too well, they'll see me in the community not wearing this uniform, and they can't quite place how they know me. Right? But I take that as an honor. To represent something like this for something so much greater than myself, I couldn't be more proud of being affiliated with this military uniform. I talked a couple months ago at the opening for the Traveling Vietnam Wall. It was kind of emotional, and nobody likes getting up in front of a crowd and showing emotions. I know I certainly don't, and I don't try to do it. But one of the things I talked about was my dad's service in Vietnam. So when he enlisted in Vietnam, country boy in Tennessee, I got trained to work on diesel engines. He went to Germany. Over in Germany, he worked on tanks, he worked on trucks, and then all of a sudden he got thrust into Vietnam. Well, they didn't have diesel engines in that camp in Vietnam that he needed to work on. What he was in charge of was protecting the camp. And what they did was like, here's a rifle, dig a foxhole, and man that claymore mine. Anybody comes through, they're here to kill your team, so you stop them. I talked about that and I got emotional because after 50 years, still he struggles with this. Still wakes up in the middle of the night sweating, smelling the bodies he was caused death. They never talked about it. That's rough. That's service. Fortunately, I have not been able to see that. But I've lived with it my entire life. But there's organizations like the Peoria Honor Flight that brings people together, and I can enjoy that with my dad last year. We went to DC. He was with like-minded people. He got to see the memorials. He got to find out why, I was called to serve. I didn't want to do what I did, but I did it when they called. And what a good feeling for him. It's opened him up in so many ways since then that I'm proud that our community does that so well. And it's one of the best in the entire nation, the Peoria Honor Flight. When I got home, I was telling my wife about that, how embarrassed I was that I got emotional talking about it. And then we started talking about my granddad, which was one of my heroes in life. And who doesn't miss the stories with your grandparents when you're a kid to connect with them? Well, my granddad, too, was from Tennessee, the hills, and just a great storyteller. Just enjoyed being around him any opportunity that I possibly could get. Well, he was a merchant marine in World War II. He couldn't get in the Navy. He had pneumonia, so he couldn't get in there. So he went to the merchant marines. And a lot of people didn't know the merchant marines were not even considered veterans at the time. They weren't veterans, but they had a higher percentage of casualties than any other military service for the amount of people they had in World War II. There were times when they would go in bays across the world, and they would find poles to lean over on their ships so people would think that they actually had cannons and they weren't without arms. And they were not considered veterans until the last few years, just after he had passed away. But one of the things he told me that was pretty cool was when I was speaking about my dad, was when he joined in World War II, he had to go to Louisiana to work on steam because some of the ships were steam powered. He went through the training to catch a ship. That's all you got. There's no phone, there's no cell phone, no internet. You just get on the train, you use the voucher to get food, and you show up in New York. And he got there and he traveled around the world. I've been a military pilot for over 25 years. I've been all over the world. In a couple of years, he served merchant marine. He saw places I've never even heard of, way more than I'd ever seen. But I was so fortunate to hear those stories. But one of them that stuck out to me was that first day he got on the ship. And somebody took him under his wing and said, hey, you didn't come from anything much like the people that are serving on this ship. You didn't have money, but you're going to have a little bit of money to spend on these bays, these ports. He says, one thing you can do is grab that government-issued merchant marine bar of soap. He said, what I want you to do is get a spoon and hollow it out. Hollow that out and put anything specialty inside of it, whether it be a key, coins, jewels, whatever it is. You put inside that bar of soap, and you take those shavings and you mold it back together. And you put it back on the counter. And that way, if anyone had the idea to steal your belongings, they would never make an assumption about that bar of soap. In many ways, our veterans are like that bar of merchant marine soap. On the surface, both the soap and military members serve as an important function in our society, and they do it well. We rely on them to do their jobs so that our daily lives and interactions are more comfortable and pleasant. Like that bar of merchant marine soap, service members have something concealed inside of them as well. Such things as experience, information, emotions, sacrifices they carry internally that can't readily be seen. And like many of the service members who came to celebrate today, their stories may remain with them forever. Just like that bar of soap, you may not know what's on the inside, but you know what is in there is incredibly valuable, worthy of protection, and certainly well worth remembering. When I'm thanked for my military service, I'm deeply appreciative, but also know that there are others who've already given and sacrificed much more than I ever will. Today is about tipping our hats to those that have raised their right hands and that have committed to our way of life. You don't have to see their uniforms or know their stories to recognize the parts of themselves they've given and the gratitude that they deserve. Please keep embracing and valuing our veterans today and every day. Thank you for your time. God bless our service members and all those who continue to support them today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel Ballard. On behalf of the Rotary Rotary clubs of Peoria and Peoria-North, Janae and I want to thank you and honor you today for your inspiring remarks. As a token of gratitude for our clubs for you being here, we've each made a donation in the total of $125 that will be gifted to the Greater Peoria Honor Flight in your name. Thank you for being here today. Please stand as we will now close our Veterans Day meeting with the singing of God Bless America, led by Ryan Lacoste and Stan Butler at the piano. After our closing song, the color guard will retire the colors, so please remain standing until the colors have been retired and the color guard has exited the room.
Please join along with us. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Color guard, retire the colors.
Wood, heart. Color. Heart.
Thank you for attending today's meeting. We are adjourned.